welcome back to the channel. I am the Spell Singer, and I'm going to carry on looking through this series of fighting fantasy books. This next one is book 4, which is Starship Traveller by Steve Jackson, and this is another solo effort from him. And as before, the way we're going to do this is look at the title and book number, talk about the blurb, read through the whole of the plot so you can understand what's happening in this one. Then we'll look at the game mechanics and the adventure sheet, which is wholly different in this title. I'll check out the artwork, which I'll run throughout the whole video, and look at some of my personal likes and dislikes, check out some fun facts, and end on a summary and score for this entry. So without further ado, let's check out the title for this one. So yeah, Starship Traveller, another entry by Steve Jackson. And this one was published in 1983, and the illustrator is Peter Andrew Jones, who I understand did the cover art and the internal artwork, which is, we'll touch on later, but is very different from anything we've seen before. So let's have a look at the blurb on this one. So on my copy we've got here, sucked through the appalling nightmare of the Seltsian Void, the Starship Traveller emerges at the other side of the black hole into an unknown universe. You are the captain of the Traveller, and your fate lies in its hands. Will you be able to discover the way back to Earth from the alien peoples and planets you encounter, or will you and your crew be doomed to roam uncharted space forever? Okay, so let's have a chat about the plot on this one. Now, Starship Traveller, it's slightly different because it's set in the distant future. So this is the first of a few sci-fi stories. And within this one, your main character, so the player, yourself, you take on the role of the Starship Commander of the Traveller. Traveller is the name of the ship. And you're kind of sucked through this black hole, like it mentioned in the blurb, into an unknown quadrant of space. The player's mission, or your mission, at this point is to find a means to return home. So you go through this black hole, you don't know where you are, and your mission is basically to solve lots of clues and try and get back to Earth. So yeah, for the first one to be set not on Titan, but in our world, but obviously way off into the future. Yeah, apart from collecting clues and getting into all kinds of trouble on different planets, the pursuit and goal of this one is to return home. The first, as I mentioned, the first of the sci-fi themed fighting fantasies, a lot like Star Trek. I'm thinking that maybe Steve Jackson was a big fan, or is a big fan. It definitely has that Star Trek feel about it, which is quite nice. The key to winning this one is a specific combination of clues for star dates and sectors, which you can pick up as you travel through the galaxy. There are some contradictory clues in there as well to kind of throw you off the scent, which is a thing that Steve Jackson obviously likes. And on each walkthrough, you can sort of understand and work out which ones are red herrings and which ones are not. Only one combination of these two numbers, the sector and the stardate, only one combination will actually work and get you home. And together, those two become your kind of time-space coordinates to safely navigate this black hole. It's a lot of fun, this one, and very different, as you will see. But it is quite open, like a lot of Jackson's books are. There is a linear path in there if you want to get the right clues to get home, but there's lots of different ways to get onto that linear path, if you're with me on that. But all in all, it's a really, really good, strong entry. Let's take a look at the game mechanics on this one. Starship Traveller kind of employs a weapons strength, so it's basically 1d6 plus 6, and also shields for the ship, for the actual Starship Traveller. And it's also the first book in the series to include rules for gun combat. So when you do get into a scrape with another ship or whatever. The combat is ever so slightly different. There's a whole section at the back. This book is not 400 entries. It's slightly less. It's 343, but a lot of that describes the ship combat. So it's slightly odd in that respect. And I don't even think the final reference is the final page. So yeah, a little bit different, but that is always a good thing. So in this one, yeah, going back to the game mechanics there, the player kind of governs the statistics for a variety of officers as well, which is a really nice touch. So as well as your own character, you have a couple others, which I'll go into in a moment, that you have to roll for as well. So it's not just you, you have your crew to look after. But not just that, you also have your ship stats. So this is really, really looking at how to do this differently. You know, instead of just having yourself and looking after yourself, you are responsible for your crew and your ship as well. There's a nice little mechanic which involves recovering stamina, because you don't really have provisions in this one like you did with the others. This one, you can have your stamina restored slightly when the narrative tells you, whenever you travel to from the Traveller, the ship. So if you imagine each member is visiting a planet, when you come back, the team can regain up to 2 stamina points, I think it is. So that's quite a nice little feature. So in the the beaming down and up of your characters, you can actually get some stamina back, which is good. But it only applies to the original version of your science officer. So say your science officer dies and he's replaced, he ain't going to get any strength back, which is a bit odd, but yeah. So yeah, like I mentioned, you have your science officer, you have your engineer, security officers, but yeah, if they die, they are replaced by junior officers in the course of the adventure. But yeah, that 2-point restoration no longer holds true. I guess because the junior officers can't join the away team or whatever, but yeah. So some really nice mechanics there. But let's look at the adventure sheet. So as you can see, it is hugely different. You have your crew, so you are the captain, and you'll roll your skill and stamina, but you'll also do that, like I say, for your science officer, medical officer, engineering officer, your security officer, and 2 security guards that will be with him or her. So that's a massive change. And then on the right-hand side of this sheet, you've got your ship stats as well. So you've got your weapon strength and your shields, which we touched on earlier. You'll roll for those, but you've got your notes where you can sort of make details of any star dates and sectors that you come across. And then you've got your original luck that you'll roll for as well. So it's a slightly different layout, but it's a really nice change, and it kind of makes you feel like you're responsible for more than yourself in this adventure, because not only have you got your crew that I've mentioned, but of course everybody else on board your ship. So it really does make you, certainly as a kid growing up reading this one, I always had a slightly different, less selfish approach to, shall we say, approach to completing this one, because you're responsible for so much more. It's a really nice touch that Jackson introduced. I don't know how true it is. Actually, no, I'll leave it for a fun fact. Let's have a look at the artwork, which I'm going to run through this recording. So the guy that did this one, Peter Andrew Jones, he did the cover, I think, of Warlock of Firetop Mountain. So you already know you're onto a winner. But this is the artwork in this book is really unique. Not a lot of people like it. I don't mind it. I quite like it, actually. There's definitely a talent there. It's just different. The quality varies wildly, though. You have a kind of stark, imaginative or amateurish to almost overly abstract. Some of the artwork looks like maybe a child drew it, and then other times it looks fantastic. But then that's good variety, I always felt. So I've got a favourite of mine, which I'll put up here. I think it's the family photo picture. yeah, of Teriel 6, I think you pronounce this planet they're from. You've got the family that live there, and it's portrayed so well. It looks simplistic and basic, but I really like it. I think it's kind of suitable for this style of book almost. It's quite quaint and adorable and different enough for you to sort of differentiate it from the other stories. But all in all, I think the artwork is suitable and does justice for this book, although it doesn't seem to be a big fan favourite. Likes and dislikes. So some of the likes for this one, I really like the feel of the story that Jackson has managed to put together here. I think he took a bit of a risk leaving the world of Titan, but that is what he was like. He was a risk taker. All of his books are different, and he does go into Titan, but he's not afraid to kind of roll the dice a bit, and it shows in this one. That leaves the world of Titan, and this book opens up for the whole fighting fantasy experience, and with a sci-fi genre and quite advanced mechanics as well. There are some dislikes though. In the planets, fewer of your choices actually have much of an effect, and you don't really need to go to many planets. In fact, of all the chances to beam down, you really only need to do that twice on the direct route to actually get the clues you need. So there's a lot of things happening that you're missing out on. A lot of exploring, a lot of battling, but that's just another feature of this book, I think. You'll usually be sort of guided in the right direction, but you can be shuttled off to like a gladiator combat at one point, or be given like black hole clues that are wrong. So there's lots of nice little red herrings in there. Going back to that gladiator battle I just mentioned, there's an image. In fact, it's on the front cover as well. If you've got a copy, check this out, because the front cover, if you look closely, the guy at the front with the staff, his arm holding the shield is surgically amputated. I had never noticed it as a kid. It's not a recent wound. It's been removed. So it's at the elbow. It's missing from there down to for the rest of his arm. So it kind of makes you wonder. He's obviously a contender and he's fought before, and even that opens up your mind into this kind of world. And the fella that's on the floor, injured, his eyes are red. So what is he, like a robot? I don't know. Yeah, really intriguing artwork. I deviated slightly there, but the gladiatorial combat scene just made me think about it. And that again is a bit of the book that you don't need to read about, but it's a huge part of the book, and it can be all skipped and you'll be none the wiser, which is a big shame. I think a lot of the interesting stuff in this could have been included in that linear path, but there's not much combat in this book actually, nor information that would help you bypass any danger, which is interesting. You could get through this book you could finish this book without getting into a single fight, which is unheard of in any other book. There's usually going to be some minimal fighting, but in this one you don't need to. So again, another book that is not dependent on your stats, your fighting, your skill, and all the rest of it. I quite like that about it actually, for a change. You don't have to go in guns blazing. It's a bit more cerebral almost. So fun facts on this one. The main body of the adventure is made up of, like I say, not quite 400, I think it was 340 something references, rather than your usual 400. I think there's a couple of books actually. Some go beyond the 400 into the 5, and then some of the later scholastics. In fact, sorcery epic is, I think the final sorcery story is Crown of Kings. That's like 800 references. But this one is the first one so far that is less than the standard 400. In fact, I think it's even less than what I said it was, because a lot of the references at the back are depicting the, it's 340. That's the final story reference. I tell a lie, it does finish on, there must be more than one ending in this book, because this one does finish on 340 as one successful attempt at getting through the black hole back home. So yeah, right. Let's do a summary on this book, and then we'll give it a score out of 10. The whole storyline is fairly, even though I said there's one direct path, it's a fairly non-linear, as with many of Jackson's books. You can bypass planets entirely, like I said, and in many cases there are multiple routes to a planet, even if you skipped it or you've missed it the first time. Exploring it is worthwhile. It's good to map. It's not easy to map, but because you need the clues, but there's also a lot of dangers in this book. Unlike a lot of the other fighting fantasy stories, you're not alone. So unlike those, you like I mentioned, you've got your crew. So aside from yourself, you've got all your officers and everybody else on board. The medical and science officers are really good at getting you out of sticky situations when you make planetfall. And you've got your security guards that are good to get you out of any encounters that you do come across, if you do. Combat is quite rare, like I said, but it only comes up a few times. But when it does, it's quite intense and well crafted. Your spaceship has weapons and shields as well. There are different rules for the space combat, which is quite a nice little touch for this one. But there are only three places in the whole book with space combat. So unlike some of the later stories, which are riddled with space combat in the sci-fi genres, this one, just three counts of space combat, and they're all avoidable. Despite the increased complexity and the less linear playthrough, for some of it may not be that satisfying for some readers, especially if you just know the path. You could finish this book quite quickly and not have an awful lot to do. But it could have been, I got a feeling it could have been so much more. Towards the end, your crew starts to freak out a little bit, and you're forced to pick any old black hole number and fly through it if you don't have the coordinates by then. But I just got a feeling that had Steve Jackson, he did such a great job, but had he included all the adventures that you can go on in this story, had he included those adventures in the path that led to the two coordinates that you need to get through the book, it could have been a little bit more fun, instead of just only really experiencing that on playthroughs where you're not intending to necessarily finish it or just have a bit of fun. Despite that, though, all told, it's a mixed bag. It's got some neat new mechanics. It's less you're less likely to need really high stats in this one, and a lot of the choices that are made in this one don't always have much of an impact on the story either. So you can kind of do what you want. And despite the obvious Star Trek homage, it wasn't really that campy enough to kind of stand out too much. It's still quite intense at times. It's not like pantomime like Star Trek was, but it does have that Star Trek vibe to it. The setting feels a little bit disjointed at times, which is to be expected in a book that involves warping from one planet to the next. You're never in the same place for very long. It would have been nice to get some more connections between the various worlds. As they're galaxies apart, every time you travel, it's going to be difficult. There's a few encounters. There's a few encounters with this the Ganzig Confederation, I think it is. So they show up every so often. They're like a race of star-faring lizard men. But otherwise, the planets they keep to themselves. It's all quite disjointed. The planet descriptions don't have much to offer either, in description and in the artwork. Quite bland, in fact. The ones that do feature are all quite brief and simplistic. The highlight for me was the jungle planet, which you have to hunt for game, and it's quite deadly and makes for some quite tense gameplay. That was quite a nice addition, that. But yeah, Starship Traveller takes a long time to make it clear just what the reader needs to do. You don't find out about these coordinates straight away. You've got to investigate before you actually realise that you need these 2 coordinates to get back. The goal is laid out at the beginning, but in a subtle way. Find your way home, but you don't know how. There's no guidance on how to do so. So it's quite grown up in that respect. So you really have to kind of think about what you should be doing and take heed of all the clues. So it's only until the very end. So you might actually go through the whole book on your first read and not know, and only at the end think, right, I need 2 coordinates to get through the black hole. That is perfectly possible. Jackson can often be frustratingly obtuse about in his game books, and that trait shows definitely in this book, in this entry. There are some frustrating moments, but most is this, I don't know what it is about Jackson and his maze, a bit like the one he did in Warlock of Firetop Mountain. There is a kind of space maze in this one that you have to navigate when testing a dimensional portal for this race. And it's horrible. It's just go left, go right, and lots of instant deaths in there, and not particularly fun. But yeah, the end of the maze, it has some dead ends, and you have to choose which platform to step off. You're kind of like in this bizarre no-land portal kind of place, and you've got to step off into nothingness, and it's a 50-50 chance of instant death, basically. With no clue as to which path is correct. So it's a harsh one, that. Luckily, the nature of this book makes it simple to skip planets and sort of breeze through if that's what you want to do, to quickly get back home. But it's not a good bit of design for me. I don't know. I think there's too much that's been written really well but is missed out. All in all, Starship Traveller, it never quite achieves what it sets out to do. Maybe it was a little bit too early. Maybe had Steve written this after Creature of Havoc, it could have been an epic adventure. The setting is a bit dry, like I said, a bit disjointed. The scenarios are a bit flat. It lacks some meaningful choice. Never gets close to capturing the feel of its source material. But I still really enjoy it because it's so different. Is it one of the best sci-fis? It's up there with them. There are better ones, but this is a strong entry after all the bad things I've said about it. I think it's more sort of frustrating because it could have been so much more, I feel. Anyway, let's give it a score. Let's give this one a score of... I'm going to give it a 6. I really like it, but I can't help but feel it's missing, and maybe it was written too soon and it's missing a lot that could have made it a lot better. It's a missed opportunity, let's just say that. Let's give it a 6 out of 10, yeah. Right, I think that pretty much covers that. All I wanted to say about Starship Traveller. It's a good story. So if you like that, give it a thumbs up or whatever, and maybe chuck some comments in there, give me your thoughts on this book if you sort of agree with some of the things I said, or if you totally disagree with it. I don't know, maybe it's your favourite, but chuck some comments in there. And if you really liked it and you want to see some more of these, maybe think about subscribing to the channel if you want. And in the next one, we will do book 5, which is The City of Thieves, which is a huge fan favourite. And that is one of Ian's, but we'll do that in the next one. So in the meantime, take care, and I'll catch you soon.